everyone. We are waiting for one panelist, but we'll just go ahead and get started, and then hopefully she can just jump right in when she joins. And I'll go ahead and read her introduction as well. So first we have Jessica Janicki. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. She is a rare materials cataloger at the David M. Rubenstein Rare Books and Manuscripts Library at Duke. And she is cataloging the Lisa Unger Baskin collection, a collection of over 10,000 volumes on the history of women's labor. And then we have, hopefully Karen will join us. Karen Feeney is the head of the North Carolina collection at the Forsyth County Public Library in Winston-Salem. She's a I'm sorry?
I said she's here.
Oh, she's here. Great.
Yes. Thank you, Karen. Welcome.
Thank you. Made it. You're fine. She's a certified archivist and leads a team of library staff who help researchers with genealogy, local history, and government document access. And then we have Alston Coburn. She is the university archivist at East Carolina University. And she's working to preserve the university's history and to increase its capabilities with electronic records. She was previously the digital scholarship librarian at Washington and Lee University, the processing and digital assets librarian at Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and a staff member at North Carolina State University. She holds a BA with majors in English and minors in creative writing and journalism, as well as a master's of library science with a concentration in archives and records management from UNC Chapel Hill. And my name is Jennifer Daugherty. I'm the head of the North Carolina collection at ECU, and I'm just going to kind of be leading the discussion and asking our panelists questions. We kind of left this as sort of an open format because we wanted to try to get a discussion going, just talking about some of the issues that have come up with the COVID-19 quarantine and where that's left some of us in our archives or special collections. And at the end, hopefully we'll have a few minutes where you can, the audience can also share their experience, whether it's in special collections or reference or, wherever they are. And we did try to find people in different types of positions. Alston's an archivist. Karen, she's the head of the North Carolina collection in a public library. And Jessica is a cataloger at Duke. So, you can see we all kind of come from different backgrounds. So, because this has sort of affected all of our positions a little bit differently. So are you all ready?
Sure.
So the first question or discussion question is, could you please share what the transition of working from home has looked like for you? And anybody is welcome to jump in.
Well, I can go first. Yeah, like Jennifer said, I'm at Duke, and I'm in technical services. And the David M. Rubenstein Rare Book and Manuscript Library has its own technical services. It has its own technical services department, separate from the technical services department for the main library. Although we're right next door to each other in the same work area. But anyway, I think we were really lucky that we had really strong leadership in technical services. And our department head, our interim department head, was put a lot of effort into planning and just assuming that we were all going to go home and that we would probably be going home very catastrophically, without much notice. And so thanks to her leadership and planning, we had a lot of really good projects to work on from home. And people also prepared someone and took home extra monitors and things like that. So we've all been, it may not be exactly what we want to work on from home, but it's actually been a really good chance to work on all those things you say you'll get to eventually when you have time and you never have time. And it's well, we have time now for this. So, and I've actually been cataloging and so have some of my fellow Rare Materials catalog and New Library Services platform, and archivists have been doing a lot of, we actually had a lot of paper finding aids, and they're going back and, encoding paper finding aids, and we're doing a lot of, they finally have time to do things like captioning for digitized AV content, things like that.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on Jessica's statement that I do think it's been a really good opportunity for all the things that we need to do and intend to do, but end up on a back burner. And they aren't necessarily any less important. They just aren't always, time critical in the same way of the patron request that has to be answered in, 2 days. So we've been using a lot of time to catch up on things like data cleanup in the archival management system and things like that. So I think that's been a great benefit for us. And then, as far as with like reference, the special collections has still been doing reference, but we have a chat service and we have a regular schedule, but it's just for email reference instead of being physically at the desk. And then so that's still been going on, and we've just been trying to sort of coordinate with each other when we get a request and someone needs something, who's going to be in the building next, and can they pull whatever the thing is and make like a quick and dirty scan on our public scanning station for people. So that seems to have actually been going pretty well, because we have had reference requests, but it hasn't been an overwhelming amount or anything. So that's actually worked pretty well. And then I think, I'm sure other people on the panel can speak to this too, that it really has just been very critical to make sure we stay, this is critical even if we were together, right, physically, but it's extra critical to make sure we're just doing check-ins with each other regularly, having our weekly meeting, but then also, my assistant archivist and I, when we have questions for each other, just give each other a text and say, hey, I got a thing, can I call you for 5 minutes? Just staying in touch like that has been really important to make sure that everything has kept going smoothly. And I think that it's been working really well. And we've started recently going into the office like so I go in on Mondays and he goes in on Tuesdays, and then there's someone else, Jennifer Darty actually is in the same area as us, and she like Thursdays. So for our physical processing, we are, or anything in the stacks sort of work, just have a schedule so we're not there on top of each other. And once again, I think that's actually been going pretty well. Karen, you're muted still.
Thanks. Okay. Sorry. I'm on my cell phone, so I apologize. We didn't actually close our library to our staff, so there wasn't a whole lot of my team trying to adjust to working from home. We were always in the building, even though we were close to the public. We closed on the March 17th to the public, and the next day we had to go library service. So we kind of had hoped that we would have a lot of time to get projects done that we were planning, but that didn't work out, surprisingly, because we did still have a lot of reference calls and reference emails coming in. We also wound up doing inventory for the entire library, starting in our department, and then we wound up helping in other departments. And some of the staff did work from home in other departments, and so we covered in a lot of their areas, like getting phone calls and things like that. So now that we're back and we're open to the public on a limited basis now, so we have people coming into the room, using the resources. We're trying to keep our patrons' visits to around 30 minutes, though we do have some researchers in our room that stay longer, and as long as our library is not at capacity, we're not having a problem with that. So but we are requiring everyone to wear masks. We have plexi shields in front of our points of service, and we have hand sanitizer when you come into the building, and our security is right at our entrance point. So they check everyone who comes in for COVID-19 symptoms to make sure everyone that comes in the building is okay. So that's kind of what we've been doing.
I'm curious, Karen, just a follow-up question to that. Are they actually taking people's temperatures, or are they just kind of asking, like, you know, do you have a fever? Or...
Yeah, they're asking if you've been tested, if you've been around someone who's been tested. They're not actually taking temperatures,
Okay.
but they're just asking probably about 5 different questions, like if they have a fever, if they have loss of appetite, or taste, or if they have a cough. So, yeah.
Okay. So our next question is, and you kind of answered a lot of this for your institution, Karen, so I don't know if you just want to kind of continue on and kind of answer the rest of it, but it was, how has your institution adjusted to the closure, in which your closure was mainly to the public? I know some of us was to the public and to staff, but yeah, it sounds like you were just to the public. And I mean that in, like, you know, even personnel wise, like, you know, how did the staff feel about the closure to the public? How did the public respond? And do you, if you haven't reopened, does your library have a reopening plan for the rest of the panelists?
Well, I can answer that. Like, we just opened, I think this is our 3rd week open. So we just opened, and we had to think about a lot of different things about how many people we were going to let in the building, how long we were going to let them in the building, what we were going to do if they didn't want to wear masks, what we were going to do if they refused to leave, how we were going to limit computer use. Right now we're limiting computer use to 30-minute sessions, and then they can use a total of 2 hours per day, but they can't do it consecutively. We had to take a lot of furniture off the actual floor, like a lot of chairs away, to make sure that people are social distancing and people couldn't crowd together. We have pop-up tents on our tables that say 1 person per table. Trying to think of what else we had. We were really concerned we weren't going to be able to get any cleaning products because we are going behind all our patrons and wiping down the computers with Clorox wipes. And it was tough there. We were getting nervous that we weren't going to have the right materials to clean with, but we did manage to get some Lysol spray and some Clorox wipes. So we're good right now with that so far. And our general services came through with a product to clean the Plexi Shield. So every couple, like maybe about 2 or 3 times a day, we clean the Plexi Shields. We haven't been very busy, which is nice. We were concerned that we were going to get a ton of people in. Our new director is from Greensboro, and they coordinated our opening with their opening so that a lot of their customers wouldn't come to our library and a lot of our customers wouldn't go to their library. So we were trying to keep it so that our populations would be served in that way. And I think that's, yeah.
It looks like we have a question, and if anybody, like if one of the panelists have a question for another panelist, or anyone from the audience wants to jump in with questions as we're talking this through, like I said, we're kind of keeping this as an open discussion, so please feel free to do that. I'm going to ask this specifically of Karen because it was asked when she was talking, but I know Austin can answer this too because we've been talking about this, and I don't know if Jessica knows anything about this, but if patrons touch your materials, are you quarantining the items before returning them to the shelves? And if you want to differentiate, I don't know if you want to differentiate between public materials and then your special collection materials.
We are quarantining them if they are allowed to go and browse the shelves. We don't have a lot of browsers in our area. We have people that come in and they'll take things off the shelf and put them on the table. I don't know, I'm not sure what they're doing we can't follow patrons around into the stacks. So if they're taking things out and putting them back in the stacks, I guess they're kind of staying there. But for things that patrons use in our room, we're quarantining them for 72 hours. We have a rotation of carts. We have like our Monday cart, our Tuesday cart, our Wednesday cart, our Thursday and Friday carts, and then we have dates on them when they can be reshelved. And we just swap out the carts every night and fill them up with materials that people have used. And I know the circulated items that are going out of the library and coming back are being quarantined for 72 hours as well. And for books that we're using, as long as we have a mask on and we wash our hands before we touch the book, like if we're looking up a quick thing in the city directories for somebody, we usually put those back because no one's going to probably use that for another 72 hours anyway. But as long as we've washed our hands and then we have our mask on them, we feel like that's okay. But that's a call that I made because otherwise it's just quarantining a lot of books that no one's really looking at anyway because we haven't been that busy. But we generally have about as many people, almost, well, no, we have probably maybe half to 3/4 of our people are coming in. Every day we've got at least 3 to 4 people in the room. So we're steady, but we're not super busy. But that's what we're generally doing with our quarantines.
And Susan added
Okay.
in the comments that at the branches of the public library in Forsyth that entry is by the honor system, a sign up that lists the symptoms and asks for patrons not to enter if they are having any of the symptoms. No one is standing at the door asking these questions. This is different from the central branch where Karen works.
They don't have security like we do all day long, so they have to do it on the honor system.
I'll just add that at ECU for the special collections, we have determined that we're going to have a quarantine period when materials get used in our research room. Then they'll be basically on the hold shelf for the 72-hour period before they get reshelved. And then I guess as far as with like internal things, one thing I can say is that so like we do have a couple staff from our digitization area that are back, coming in one or 2 days a week or something like that. And so anyways, if there's patron request and we're going to digitize something as a part of a patron request through that department, that's now sort of built in that when it gets transported, it goes into like the conservator has an area where he's putting things. It goes there for 72 hours before it moves on to the people who actually be doing the scanning work. So that's that part. I guess I'd also add that related to the research room, so we have a setup where we have a main reference desk for special collections. Like obviously there's a regular library reference desk downstairs, but in special collections we have a service point, and then we also have the research room, which is separate, and there's a desk in there. And so what we had done previously is that desk was also sort of staffed at the same times really as the main desk. And so we're changing that around because we're going to do reference service. We have limited decreased, I should say, hours than our normal schedule. But we, and we're trying to like divide that up so we only have like a couple people in the building who can provide backup to each other. But, to minimize the number of people that have to be there at once. And so to help with that, we're making the research room available by appointment only. So if people need to use our materials, they're going to have to make an appointment to come do that, so we can make sure we have that room staffed as well. And there will be some plexiglass at the service points. And then I think in general, we're still just going to try to, in the whole division, we're going to try to sort of rotate, have a rotation schedule that works around the reference rotation, but just to decrease the number of people who'll be in. So there is a lot of reopening plan details, but there are things that are still be working out. you know, little details. And I'm sure announcements made by the governor like today may impact that as well. But we are going to be roping off chairs and roping off computers. And really that's one spot that's still not worked out is the classroom spaces in the library. There's only one of them that is officially like a bookable classroom, like in the sense of a professor being able to book it for a whole semester. So therefore, the official occupancy of the other classrooms in the library that we use regularly, that's a spot where we're still waiting for some info on what the allowed capacity of those rooms will be. But the campus has instituted a, you know, policy that everyone in public spaces must wear masks. So that is going to be a thing that all of the patrons will be having to do. And it is my understanding that still, you know, normally we would be open to the public as well as the campus community, but that when we reopen, which is supposed to happen August 10th, that the the external community, the local community patrons would not be allowed in yet in that phase of reopening. I don't think it's been determined when that would change. And then I think as far as not letting people into spaces, I know that in the library in general, they're trying to, not all the study rooms are going to be available, but for special collections, we're on the 3rd floor and the 4th floor, and the 4th floor is really just staff offices, and then there's one very nice rotunda room that we use for teaching sometimes, and it's an open space that students and people can come and study. So that room, we're just gonna close that off to the public right now to patrons, so there's one less space to sort of clean. And also because we don't really have anyone who's normally like a staff person normally in that space to help monitor the social distancing and try to enforce that, which on the 3rd floor we would, because there'd be someone at the reference desk. And that's a thing we felt like was important.
So yeah, at Duke, it's actually kind of interesting. We were closed, entirely closed to both staff and patrons for over 3 months. And when we went home on fairly short notice, although, like I said, there had been a lot of discussion beforehand, and I had actually been working from home for like a week beforehand. But anyway, so yeah, so we've been completely closed to staff and patrons for 3 months, and we've just recently opened up for staff only, and it's only some staff. It's this is part of the university has a larger reopening plan, so we're in phase 2.1, they're calling it, and so that's very limited staff access, and so it's things like people who are doing digitization, for example, because there's patron requests, and so they're digitizing things. And for Rubenstein, it is a very few of our public services staff, so like our stacks manager, and our staff who handle some of the DC digital reproduction requests, and his staff and the digitization services. So that's been it. They're helping test out protocols for like cleaning and things like that, and like how is it, you know, do we need to take chairs out, things like that. And then it's the same thing for the larger library system. There's been a very few like circulation staff there. We have tentatively, not the Rubenstein, the main library has tentatively opened up. Sorry about that. That's a phone ringing. All right, anyway, sorry. That's a, so the main library has opened up for like a takeout service, and that's just for the Duke community. So they started it with staff, actually. We got to be the guinea pigs, and then it'll be, faculty and graduate students can do takeout. And then when the students come back, the plan is for the library to be open to the campus community, like the larger library. For the Rubenstein, our reading room is going to open the latest is that the reading room is going to open about a month into the semester. We historically have low usage right at the start of the semester because, we have a lot of undergraduate usage, and like the undergraduates haven't got their midterm paper assignments yet and that kind of thing. So, and faculty are all busy with their new classes. So we're going to open about a month into the semester, and it's going to be by appointment only. And people are going to have to reserve, there's going to be limited time as well. We're not going to be open all of our hours. It's going to be a narrow time window so we can have staff availability. And people will need to, people will have to schedule their time online, and they're going to have to sort of be screened by an archivist who's going to talk with them and make sure what materials do they want to use. Can we maybe find another option for them? Maybe it's been digitized. Maybe we can get it digitized in a time frame that they need. And then if they are going to come on campus, to make sure that we can have materials pulled and waiting for them before they actually come in. So there's not going to be any like in the moment pulling of materials. It's going to be like ahead of time. So that way, to limit handling and everything. And right now, our staff who are on site, our stacks manager has worked out a system for quarantining materials. Like if something has been pulled and it's going to be digitized and it's going to come back and need to get reshelved, she has a system so that it's really clear what's going where and how long things have been sitting and is it safe to reshelve them. And she's hoping to expand that for when more staff are working on site, because staff will probably be pulling their own materials.
Okay. There's a comment from Susan from Forsyth County. Forsyth County has input a plan to twice weekly rotate through all the library branches to spray the surfaces inside and during this time on 30 minutes. We will have to ask patrons to leave the buildings. It will start soon, and it will be interesting to see how it works out, and where employees will go or stay or what. Anyone have? And you all have been addressing those plans. Jennifer, do you have any additional comments on that?
Just that one of the things we've even talked about with the cleaning is that, closing, they were talking about closing down different, I think our training resource center is going to have much scaled back usage than it normally would. And I think the idea would be to, like, our facilities people who are going to have more put on them because of the cleaning, some of the cleaning demands, that we're trying to limit areas. I think that's one of the ideas too about with our fourth floor ECU, is with that, like trying to minimize areas. I was curious if, because I know that Jessica works in technical services, if they're going to have any restrictions on, like, if because I know sometimes books have to be recataloged or issues come up. Are you all going to have any restrictions on, like, books that you're going to take down there? Like, are they going to be quarantined before you all will work with them, or after they leave your department, or?
So only a very, very, very few number of technical services people have been back on site. And I don't know exactly what the plan is. Some of this also depends on, because we are actually not in the main library. We are at a warehouse on campus, along with all of the other technical services staff. And so there's a certain amount of quarantining built in because things have to get shipped from point A to point B, and there's going to be limited shipping. And so things are going to, the last I heard was there's going to be 2 shipments a week. So there's going to be a certain amount of built-in quarantining. You're going to pack something up for shipping. It's not going to get picked up for a couple days, and then it's going to get to its destination, and it should be safe when it gets to its destination. They can open it, and same thing in reverse. I think it's going to be like Friday and Monday. So if we get a delivery on Friday, we'll unpack it Monday, and so there's a certain amount of delay built into the workflow anyway. And we do get things delivered by mail. We are also the receiving point for purchases and other acquisitions that come into our area. The hope is that acquisitions will not continue at the same rate that they did, although that remains to be seen. We don't know what the budget's going to be like. because there was like a purchasing freeze earlier in the spring when there was like, oh no, we have to stop buying things. We can't spend any money. And so that problem sort of solved itself for the spring, but it's not really clear what's going to happen for what's going to happen for the fall. And we always have to buy some things like for classes and for teaching and stuff like that. So don't know that there's a plan. We do have space so things can come in and they can sit before they get opened. But I don't know that there's, I don't know all the details. Some of it has to be like worked out, like because so many other departments are involved. Like there's shipping and receiving like for our building, and there's acquisition staff. And like I said, with shipping in between departments, there's shipping and receiving staff, and they're, you know, they drive a truck basically around between all the points, and we're one of the stops. And then also a lot of our materials are at offsite storage. So a lot of times we're calling a book, like if you're going to recatalog something or if you're going to compare copies, you're requesting it from offsite storage. And so some of that workflow is also going to depend on the staff there.
Jennifer, I think that you should probably maybe speak to this a little, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. You know, the other thing that occurred to me that's been sort of like, this is not actually about cleaning, but the other thing that I think has been, seems like currently to be the biggest source of anxiety for our special collections staff. And I would say, I think also just for the instructions librarians in general, so non-special collection too, that I think that like the face-to-face instruction, that seems to be a current source where we're of anxiety for people. And we've been trying to work out like what those plans are going to look like, you know, and how do we do that safely and meet the need for that. I don't know, Jennifer, do you want to say anything to that?
Just that it's been surprising to me that that we have some faculty that are very much like aware of what's going on with COVID and the university and restrictions, and then how we could, you know, work with them. Like they immediately asked for virtual instruction, or, you know, hey, how can we still use primary sources when we understand that this isn't, we probably won't be able to come in. And then I've had the exact opposite, where there just seemed to be no awareness at all of what was going on. And it was kind of a little shocking to me, like, okay, well, you know, that's not really going to work because, you know, we can't have your class of 25 come in a group and use the same materials. Back, you know, to the like quarantining question, that's what we kind of are having to tell people, that if you have a class come in and you want them all to use like specific collections, that if one student is using that collection and they have touched that collection, then we're going to have to quarantine it, and only that student can use the collection for a period of time. But every time they come in, the quarantine starts over. So the other student, we just can't allow them to, and we were still, I know we were kind of still working out the period of time with that. So, but, you know, we're mainly with instruction trying to work on ways that, and just like how we can do it without face-to-face or limited face-to-face. And we've encouraged for this first, we're doing 2 8-week block, like quarter sessions, which I know not all universities are doing that, but I have encouraged, at least for the first one, for faculty to not use paper, like I say paper, but, you know, physical primary sources in our collection, because what happens if we shut down 2 or 3 weeks into the semester and they're in the middle of doing research with that collection? With grad students, it's a little hard because some of them have to. But otherwise, if they're just needing to pick a primary source and write about it, which we get a lot of those kind of assignments, I'm encouraging them to use digital, basically primary sources that have been digitized from our collection. So.
Okay. There's another question in the chat from John. Let me go back up to it. How do you or will you prioritize access to research or reading rooms for patrons? Will patrons that frequent the reading room because they are local, for example, genealogists, be asked not to come in favor of out of town researchers?
I would say no for us. I don't think we're going to have any sort of prioritization. if we did have a person, let's say a local genealogist, who decided they needed to come and they tried to book us for the entirety of the 4 hours in the afternoon for a whole week, you know, we might then say, hey, could we space this out a little more to see if there's somebody else that needs to come this week too? Or, you know, I think we would deal with it if we felt like there was an issue, but I don't think upfront we're going to make any guidelines about that. Other than, as I said, right now when we open, it's just going to be the campus community that's allowed to come in the library. But later on, once it's extended to other patrons outside, I don't think we'll prioritize them in a particular way.
And you may have said this, Austin, but they have to book an appointment even after we start allowing people from the outside to come in.
Yes.
And in our meeting, one thing we said to each other was, we just need to be flexible. And in some of these situations, someone might have a unique situation or a researcher might, and we're just going to try to be as flexible as possible and see, you know, what situations have guidelines to see what situations arise.
Okay.
And I can jump in from the public library perspective. We're not taking appointments. It's just first come, first serve, but all our tables, we've got about 8 research tables and it's only 1 person per table. So as long as they're 1 person per table, it's okay. As long as they're wearing their mask and everything. If we start, and we've never had 8, I don't even think when it's like spring exam time, when we do have students come to study, that we've ever had all of our tables full. But if we do see someone here that's a long time and someone wants to come in, then we'd have to invoke our like 30-minute, you know, we're trying to get people through 30 minutes, but we're trying to give people leeway so they can get back to their normalcy as much as possible. But most of our people are coming in doing research. They're here maybe an hour or so. We do have one lady that comes in, she's here about 3 hours, but she sits over by herself in the corner. So we just leave her be. But we haven't been so busy that we haven't had a table. But if that does come up, then that's something we're addressing on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and there's a comment from Christine. UNCG library instruction is only virtual for the fall semester, and where you are sharing that information with faculty ensure awareness. That's just a comment.
And I will say that, you know, I was talking about like some professors seem unaware. Our university has been sending out these updates to people, and then the library's kind of been is sending updates and is going to be, but you know,
there's no good reason they should be unaware, is what you're saying.
But that's okay. That's okay.
They've been well informed.
Do you all want to? I have a few more questions, but do you all want to just take like the last like 10 minutes or so, and we can take more questions from the audience? Or if someone, I mean, it seems like we've had a good discussion going with people chiming in, but if people want to take this time to shoot us comments on what your institution is doing, and Sandra's doing a lovely job of reading those out and asking the questions. While you're doing that, I'll ask another question to the panel, and we can kind of talk about that real quick, and then you all can send us in comments or questions that we can discuss as well. But my question was, and what I was thinking of specifically with this is, do you think there will be long-term effects from the closure to your special collections or to your position? I actually was thinking in terms of when I was making this question, like, oh, you know, did we miss out on some donors? Were there donors that maybe called and kept trying to call us and didn't get a hold of us? We have actually dealt with some donations of collections during this, but has anyone else? And again, feel free to like send us comments or questions while we're talking.
I would like to answer that. Since we've been open like on a limited basis with the to-go library, we have had people asking about donations, and we're not accepting any donations right now. So I feel like our photograph librarian brought up a really good point. She's like, with everybody at home for COVID, they've been cleaning out their closets and cleaning out their things. And there's
Mhm.
probably a lot of donation opportunities out there right now that we can't take part of. And it's killing me because I want to put a blog post out there, you know, like a call to our patrons to bring things in, but I can't do that yet because we can't accept donations yet. So I feel like that's definitely one thing that's definitely affecting our collection. But we do also we have been offering virtual genealogy help, and it's been pretty popular. We've had at least 10 sessions each month since we started. It got started a little bit slowly, but now that people know it's out there, we've been getting a good response to it. And they're using a lot of our databases. I don't know that they're aware that we have a lot of genealogy collections in the library, but we're hoping that that will eventually, you know, filter into that, because we're going to keep that going for people who are homebound and who just can't come into the library, don't want to come into the library right now, because a lot of older people do genealogy. So, but yeah, we'd like to get those collections, but we can't right now.
I would say, well, I am actually going by a donor's house tomorrow afternoon to pick up. It's just 3 yearbooks, but you know, so I have been getting a few things still, but I think that what I think when I was thinking about this question was that I think the impacts to the budget overall are going to be like one of the longest lasting effects of this on the collection, or really I would just say like the whole division of special collections. I mean, I think that's true to the library as a whole as well. But so from the special collections perspective though, I mean, the first thing that a thing I really see as being a potential issue for us is that, like, so for example, in this particular instance, we were attempting to hire a digital archivist, but we are not going to be able to hire now. We are not, that's been, the plug's pulled on that. We are not going to be able to hire that or anything else, you know, probably for the foreseeable future. So I guess I was thinking, you know, digital preservation, which is part of special collections work in general. You know, that is a thing that tends to get the shaft regard, like everywhere all the time. You know, it's one of those things that everyone says we should do, but then like it's not, you know, seen as mission critical in the same sort of way, even though really it should be. And so therefore it tends to get the back burner. And I don't think this is going to help that. You know, having budget crunches is definitely going to make investing in that sort of infrastructure of people to do that work, or even just like, you know, cloud storage or, you know, a preservation management system, you know, it's going to make those things all just fall further in the back burner, I think. And I think that is probably something that really anyone in special collections, like, we should just kind of expect as a trend maybe. But I think that's a real concern. And then I do think the acquisitions sort of budget, I mean, I don't really purchase things for University Archives, right, normally, but like Jennifer's collection, the North Carolina collection, that's a big, you know, they do purchase materials, and manuscripts does sometimes. And you know, I don't think those budgets are gonna rebound anytime real soon. So that's what I think. And I thought about with patrons, you know, maybe some of them will be off put and not come as much, you know, when this all settles out, because they'll have learned that they can do a whole bunch of things online that they didn't realize they could or something. But I also think that could be, I think it's just as likely that, you know, people will really have missed coming to do the things in the building that they wanted to do or needed to do. And not everything can be done online. So it might be that some people have more of an appreciation for, you know, being able to come use the special collections. I think that's going to be a toss up. I don't really know about that.
Okay. I do have a comment here from Lisa Coates on UNCW Randall Library is mostly doing our library instruction virtually, but they're saying that we could go to classrooms, and they have been set up safely. Our library classrooms will not be open for instruction, however. And that's just a comment. Thank you, Lisa.
It's interesting across the board here, and just from the comments, how different each institution, even in branches of different libraries, what the approach is, and what the institutions are doing, and what people are comfortable with or uncomfortable with. Do you all have any last? Oh, and Lisa said she thought that as well. Does anyone have any last comments they would like to make? We've got about 2 minutes left, so I don't want to ask another discussion question unless we talk really fast. But Jessica, do you see any long-term changes to technical services from this, like an effect, or do you feel like you guys will just get back to business as usual once you, whatever that'll be in the future?
It's interesting because on the one hand, it's not like we're going to run out of stuff to do. You know, I could probably work from home for another 2 years or something, and I'm not going to run out of, and not just busy work, but like meaningful, important work we're good about doing. On the other hand, what's not only something we've sort of talked about amongst ourselves is like, it's that whole like, you know, you do want to be relevant, but you also don't want to die. You don't want to make the pandemic worse. And it's really that tough, you know, you want to be like, no, people aren't going to die if they don't come to the library. It's going to be fine. But on the other hand, like Alston said, like there are things that you just can't do except with the original materials. There's a certain kinds of scholarship that can only be done actually accessing the original materials. And it's also extraordinarily meaningful for undergraduates. We have really great interactions with undergraduates where they have really sort of like moments of scholarly epiphany, you know, handling original materials, and you can't replicate that in an online instruction session. But so it's a very difficult balance of like risk versus, you know, you don't want to be like, oh, we're super important, because like we're not. But then again, we are kind of important. And you know, where do you draw that line in your messaging? And there's no like easy answer.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I actually had a question for you too. So we normally would have student workers, and we had to let all of our student workers go at April 1st. So, and right now we're going to be supposedly going to be able to hire some work study students, which will be great. But we're not hiring other students again. So my question for you was, I didn't know what the situation like that was for you. I don't know if you normally have any student workers that help in your cataloging area or not. And, sort of, I guess what I was thinking was, so like for us, I've had to try to, figure out, well, this project that students were doing, yes, we really do still need to finish that inventory. So like, let's figure out who's going to do that, right? Versus the things it's like, well, that's fine, we can just not do that for a while. And so I didn't know for you if you'd had any of that juggling of stuff that students were doing before or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there was definitely like an awkward interim period where we had been sent home, but people hadn't decided what was happening with the student assistants, and like, were they going to get paid? Were they not going to get paid? Could they come if people were local? Because the students had been sent home, like they didn't come home after spring break, but we have plenty of students who are local and like live in Durham. Like, could they come in and still work? It was all very, very confusing. But as far as I know, for the fall, we're not going to have students in the Rubenstein because the plan is still to not have staff back regularly, but to have it be like by appointment for very specific things. Like, I need to come in one day to do this stuff so that I can then go back and like work from home some more, like that kind of thing. There's like, I don't know, some kind of rush request on this one thing. We need to just knock it out and get it done. So somebody will come in and work on it. So we're not going to have, the plan is, as far as I know, is to not have student assistants, especially because everything is still up in the air about like, where the students going to be living. Like, some of them maybe are going to be living in hotels.
Right.
I think the whole I kind of feel for them because the whole situation for them is totally up in the air.
Absolutely. And I'm only gonna put in for one work study because, like you said, there's so many unknowns. It's like, I'm only gonna try to manage one in that environment. It's just, I think otherwise would be too unwieldy. But I feel bad for them too. I know that it was very stressful for a lot of them trying to figure out, what they were gonna do instead.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Jennifer, do you have any closing comments for the panel?
No, just thank you all for participating, and thanks for the audience participating as well. I think we're all we'll see what happens. I think that was the conclusion we've all made here is we'll see what happens in the next coming months.
Okay. Well, thank you all for participating in this panel and for the participants attending this session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sandra.
All right. Take care.